Hey there, I'm Alex Kidman, and this is the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G wireless controller. Let's get into the review. Now, before we start, I have a bit of a problem with this product being called Ultimate. And look, part of it is me being a bit of a grammar pedant, because if you call a product Ultimate, how do you ever make something better? And technology always evolves. But in this case, it's also because 8BitDo produce a couple of different controllers, which are the Ultimate controller, which kind of baffles me, but also has the potential to confuse people because of what these controllers do and don't do in terms of compatibility, which I'll get into in a minute. But let's first of all talk about the design of these controllers. So you can get the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G in purple, pink, black, or white finishes. This is the black model, obviously, and it's actually the one that I would advise you to get. Why? Well, simply put, based on many decades of buying different coloured controllers, black controllers tend to wear better over time. They don't show the scuffs, they don't show the dirt and grease and everything else that goes on with something that is handled on an everyday basis. And well, that's a kind of gross thing to think about. The reality is they tend to look a lot better over a longer span of time, but obviously it's a taste choice, you do you. While this is pitched as a multi-platform controller, the look and design is very much Xbox. I mean, I've got an Xbox Series X controller right here. If I grab that, I mean, you can see they're very similar, and obviously they've got the same button layouts as well. You get dual Hall effect joysticks on the current model. Again, there are multiple Ultimates, which is confusing, as well as a standard D-pad, front buttons for plus and minus, and a star button for pairing and for turbo mode by default, button underneath that for profile switching. Then you get usual triggers at the top, and because this is a customizable controller, you also get buttons at the back, which can be configured, although I'll get into that in a minute. This is a really nicely built controller as well. It feels solid. It's not super heavy, but it's not super light the way some really cheap and awful controllers are. At 236 grams, it's just slightly lighter than, say, for example, a Switch Pro controller, but it's quite a bit lighter than that Xbox Series X controller. It's good to hold in the hand for a long period of time without feeling like it's just made out of cheap, light plastic rubbish, which you should totally expect at this kind of price point. The other ultimate part of the deal is this charging dock. Now, you can just plug it in via USB-C and it will charge that way, but then the far more convenient way to do this is to plug the charging dock in, again, via USB-C, and just drop the controller onto it. That's the whole idea there. It lights up when the controller is charging, and then the light goes out once it's full, which is also nice to see. It gives you that reassurance, hey, this is actually working, this is actually charging. The charging base is also where you'll find the 2.4 gigahertz receiver. It's actually housed in a little compartment at the base. Nice for keeping it safe when it's not in use, I guess, or for portability purposes. They do, I think, sell a travel case for this thing now as well, if you travel around with your controller a whole bunch. Connecting up the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G controller will depend on the platforms you're connecting it to. So officially, you're talking PC, Mac, Steam Deck, Raspberry Pi, Android, and Apple systems, so Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, and TV OS, with varying compatibility. Some older systems may not be able to hack it. You can, of course, connect wired to many systems, although why you'd buy a wireless controller to connect wired, I'm not exactly sure, although that would give you the lowest possible lag. There's a switch on the back of the controller which switches it between X input and D input modes, and that will vary depending on the device that you need to connect it to. And this is where I get slightly annoyed at 8BitDo. It is 8BitDo, or I'm going to call it 8BitDo. If you think it's 8BitDo, that's fine, and you can argue about it with me in the comments below. But having talked to company reps at CES many years ago, I'm fairly confident that it's 8BitDo. But I digress, because I'm annoyed with 8BitDo. And the reason why I'm annoyed is because this is the Ultimate controller, but there's also another Ultimate controller, and that's the Ultimate Bluetooth controller, despite the fact that this is an Ultimate controller which has Bluetooth. And if you're confused, well, yeah, a lot of consumers, I suspect, are likely to be confused. It's not a good way to do business. And it also affects what this can connect to, because this controller, the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G controller, can, for example, connect to a Nintendo Switch. And you might think, oh, great, and it's Bluetooth, so I just connect it like I would any other Bluetooth controller, right? No, not at all. Not compatible. Your Switch will not see it. Or if there's a method for connecting it to a Switch via Bluetooth, I've not seen it. The way you do that is only with the 2.4 gig receiver. Now, I have tested this. Ideally, they want you to plug it into the USB-A port on the Switch dock, although it will actually work with like a USB-C adapter into the USB-C port on a Switch, or even on a Switch Lite for that matter. But that's a really ungainly way to use it. It doesn't look good. It plays fine, it works. You do also have to enable the Switch Pro mode, which means your Amiibo won't work in that configuration. That's the other limitation there. And, over and above that, you also don't get gyroscopic controls. However, the Bluetooth model, the Ultimate Bluetooth model, which looks broadly similar, although it does have the Nintendo layout for the ABXY, this has the Xbox One, that does connect Bluetooth-wise, and it has gyroscope control. So if you're after Switch compatibility, that would probably be the one to get. However, of course, 2.4 gigahertz does give it advantages in lag, in latency, if that's terribly important to you. Obviously, it depends on the kind of game you're playing. For some gamers, it's not going to be a thing at all. For others, it's going to be the difference between glorious victory and lying in a puddle of your own blood and teeth. And here, yeah, look, 2.4 gig definitely, or at least observably by me, I've not done the full-on direct measurement kind of thing, but observably within games, 2.4G feels more responsive. I've had a better time using it as a 2.4G controller, especially on PC, and it's pretty clear that this is a controller built for PC because 8BitDo also supply their own software, Ultimate software, for configuration for PC only. And this lets you get really precise, not just on simple stuff like button remapping, which you can do on other platforms, I guess, with third-party software, but also on trigger sensitivity and dead zones and profile settings. You can set up to 3 profiles switchable. The PC app also will let you set Android configurations the same way, but while it supports Mac, and I've paired it to a Mac over Bluetooth, and it's worked fine for the games I've played, although Mac gaming can be a fussy kind of beast for some things. So again, the Bluetooth controller might be a better option, and I've not tested with that, but you take your chances with Mac gaming in certain ways. Again, I'm sort of digressing, and I'm sort of not, because this is about how this controller works. My complaint here, I guess, is that because you've got these 2 different platforms that cover 2 different needs, and they're both called Ultimate, it just doesn't feel very ultimate to me. I'm a little bit disappointed that 8BitDo couldn't have made the single one controller switchable, and sure, you might need like a 3 or a 4-point switch at the back to cover all of the modes, or even that thing that lots of other controllers do where you hold down a button and then another button to switch it between modes. I wish they'd done it all, because that would feel really ultimate. And the other reason I wish they'd done it all is because this is a really nice, fun controller to use. The battery life is really very good, rated up to 15 hours. And look, I'll be honest, I don't have a full-on 15-hour gaming session in me anymore, and I don't really have the time either. But over a week's worth of fairly intense gaming, day in, day out, keeping it deliberately off the charger, yeah, it did not go flat. It should be fine for most people's regular use unless you're a real endurance gamer. And of course, the point here is because it's got that easy charging dock, in between gaming sessions, ideally, you just drop it onto the charging dock and you'd never really think about the battery life at all, because 99% of the time when you're going to be using it, it's going to be fully charged anyway. The only catch there, I suppose, is that this is a sealed unit. You can't pop the batteries out as you can, for example, with an Xbox controller. And that means when it dies, you're either going to have to get really handy with spudgers and, from the looks of it, from other people's teardowns, soldering irons, in order to get the slightly strangely shaped battery out of there, if you can source another one. I suspect most people, if and when the battery finally dies on this thing, are probably just going to buy another one if they're still available then. But should you buy the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G wireless controller? That is such a long name. Well, maybe. Look, this is a really good controller. I really like what 8BitDo has done here physically. This works really, really well. It's a really good, nice feeling controller, which it totally should be for the money. However, you do have to weigh up your compatibility options. This is absolutely a best bet controller for PC gamers, less appealing for Switch gamers, for example, bit middle of the ground for everyone else. So please check that compatibility. Also check which units you're getting, because checking around on pricing on this, so many listings suggest, oh yes, this is the Switch compatible model, it does Bluetooth, but actually it's the 2.4G or vice versa, or it's the old stock, because the older stock, as far as I can see, did not have Hall effect sensors on the 2.4G model. You've really got to carefully check who you're buying it from and which model that you're getting. All of that said, this is a decent buy for the money. Obviously, in this price range, you do have a lot of choices. Please do shop around and consider what suits you best, what fits your hands best, what style you like best. But this is a good controller, and it is recommended. Anyway, that's my take on the 8BitDo Ultimate 2.4G wireless controller. I know it's been around for a while, so odds are you might already have one. Got any thoughts, got any tips you want to send my way? Hit me up in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.